On the podcast, business leaders rate Prime Minister Christopher Luxon just 15th out of all his ministers. Wow. This is devastating. And Nicola Willis is a lowly 13th, both outside the top 10. If this isn't a result that screams crisis, then what is? Will this jolt them into action? It's got to. Let's go.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, proudly sponsored by the Brothers Green. Unlock the innate power of New Zealand botanicals to support your mobility. Try the Brothers Green New Zealand Move Joint Support Tonic and join over 20,000 other Kiwis experiencing easier movement. For as little as $1 a day, you too can experience the power of New Zealand hemp seed oil for your joint health. Head to brothersgreen.co and use code DG20 at the checkout for 20% off your first order. It's a good one. Always read the label. Take as directed. Supplementary, of course, to a balanced diet. The Brothers Green, Christchurch. Okay, welcome to the podcast. I'm Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief. Lovely to have your company. And please subscribe. It helps us stay around a bit longer. And also thanks to the Brothers Green and Christchurch for their partnership, for their support. Wow. What a killer mood of the boardroom survey this is. This is put out by the Herald every year, and it has seen business leaders sucker punch the PM and deliver a poor verdict on both him and the Finance Minister, Nicola Willis. Unprecedented. Absolutely unprecedented. And I've covered this stuff. This survey now, this comprehensive survey for years, it's an excellent piece of work. It talks to decision makers. And never before have I seen the top two ministers ranked so badly. What does it mean? Where will it lead to? Let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
Okay, this is a devastating bit of PR for Christopher Luxon and for Nicola Willis. How they handle this news, and if they can, and how they come back from this, will be the measure of them, I suppose. Can they? Is yet to be seen. That's the question. This will seriously dent their confidence, and it will raise further questions within the National Caucus as to whether they have the right people at numbers 1 and 2 in the party and the right people to lead them to victory at the next election. Certainly, Luxon and Willis now come as a package. And if Luxon walks away or is dumped from his role, then almost certainly Willis goes too. They are a combination. They are friends, so he says. They rise together and they sink together. And right now, these two are starting to cop the blame for the way things are in New Zealand right now, for this long-standing now recession, which just drags and drags. Business leaders, in this herald mood of the boardroom survey, has delivered them the worst possible news. A devastating blow, and ranking Willis at 13, Luxon even further down. The Prime Minister is at 15. Never before have I seen the government's top two ministers ranked so lowly in this survey, which is an excellent, as I said, excellent piece of work, really credible. Put it this way, can you imagine Bill English and John Key being rated so lowly? Can you, say, imagine Helen Clark and Michael Cullen coming in so badly? They always rank at or near the top two. And this spells real trouble for these two now. This is not a ranking handed out by the public or by caucus colleagues, and you'd expect some rough treatment from the public, certainly. And also from some caucus colleagues who don't like you, they might rank you quite lowly too. But these are Nationals people, these are CEOs, business leaders, board chairs, people who run the businesses and therefore the country. They are in the boardrooms where the big decisions are made. They are the CEOs. These are the people that make the decisions. And Luxon says, well, he's one of them. That's where he came from. These are his people, you'd think. In many ways, his friends. You expect the public to be harsh with their view of politicians, but not these guys. These guys, well, they'll be harsh on politicians, but on national politicians and the Prime Minister? Anyway, they've totally smacked Luxon between the eyes. Big bloody nose. And placed him as low as 15. Put him at 20. He wouldn't even make his own cabinet. If you're at 20, you're outside cabinet. 15's embarrassing. In short, it's embarrassing for Luxon. It's downright appalling, and clearly these people think he's not done enough, hasn't communicated well enough, and he's now responsible for this recession. And that might be harsh, but it's now the truth. And I've been saying this for months now. They've let this recession drift along thinking it would end. That it would end sometime. And short, Luxon's been asleep at the wheel, and Willis is complicit in this too. Their tax cuts were banked. And what have they said or done since? Name one big thing. Name something. The cancer drugs, yet they were excellent. But it was overlooked initially and they had to backtrack and go back and do it. Remember that? This week they have tinkered with immigration settings and come up with $400 million to rebuild classrooms. That's great. That's excellent. And you almost expect that from a government, any government. But both these pieces of work came from the office of one person, Erica Stanford, and she's ranked at number 1. She is excellent and gets number 1 in this ranking, and I'm not surprised. Business leaders like what she's doing around NCA, changing the qualification. It's a massive piece of work. Getting everybody to agree in that area, God, it's almost impossible. But she has. And she's done it well. So she ranks as number one. All eyes are now on her as someone who might have to step up and lead this party towards the next election. If not her, then Chris Bishop. Or a mixture of those two. But those two have emerged as Nationals leaders in waiting, in my view. And I've been saying this on the podcast for some time, and the talk has only just got louder, thanks to this revealing and, quite frankly, shocker of a survey for Willis and Luxon. The timing couldn't be worse. The timing's terrible, coming so soon after the big dip in GDP. And Luxon and Willis are now under pressure to respond. They clearly are the figureheads now being blamed for this extended recession. And even if it's not fair, it's how it is. And if we're not out of this by the new year, and if we're still in the doldrums, I can't see how National will be so patient as to take this leadership team into the next election. I think they might roll them. It is crunch time for Willis and Luxon. They need to see some magic soon, or they might just be part of the disappearing act. Don't you think? They are desperately now hoping that low interest rates kick in and people start spending and people feel better about themselves and their household finances. But there's two schools of thought on that. Some say we're not at the bottom yet, and if that's the case, then Luxon and Willis will need to put out all stops and try something. Being idle and saying nothing, doing nothing, is no longer a strategy for their own personal survival. For their own sake, they must get hands on. As I said last night, get their hands dirty. I've been saying this for some time, but suddenly things just look more and more urgent now because of the survey. Make no mistake, the survey means the clock is ticking on both their political reputations and their political careers. I give them 6 months to turn things around. Failing that, calls for Bishop and Stanford to step up will be loud and will be clear. Make no mistake, it's on.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, joining me now is ACT Leader and the Deputy Prime Minister, David Seymour. He joins me now. David, g'day.
Not a worry, Duncan.
Where are you, Ashburton?
I am. I'm in mid-Canterbury, and in spite of the gloom that I know has descended on the country, here it is sunny, the sky is big, and except for being harassed by Environment Canterbury, people are pretty upbeat.
You know, I was in Southland last week again. I've been there twice in a month now to an awards dinner of business leaders. 500 people in black ties. Southland is pumping, and South Island actually is almost a different feel to the North Island, eh?
Yeah, I think that's fair based on the visits I've done lately. I'm going up to Nelson and Blenheim next week, so I'll be kind of interested in that. I was in Invercargill and Dunedin about a month and a half ago, and same basic thing. Been in and out of Christchurch a lot, not bad. So yeah, definitely there is a different South Island vibe. That's for sure.
Yeah, and so how do we get that vibe into the North Island then? Because I mean, as you will know better than anyone, as Deputy PM and also the ACT Leader, Auckland is, I don't know, it's sort of stalled and struggling and looking for confidence, looking for someone to lead them into that next decision, isn't it? You compare it to the South Island. I'm glad you're there today because you'll see the differences, right?
Yeah, it's definitely uplifting. Look, if you want my take on it, our country lost its mojo a few years ago when we were locked down, and we've never quite got it back. What the government is doing, I believe, will help, but to some extent, it's almost a confidence trick. So look, you look through the stuff we're doing. I mean, are we controlling the government spending? Yeah, we're actually being really disciplined on that. We're increasing spending each year, yes, but by far less than inflation, far less than population growth. So it's actually, we're keeping that really, really tight. Are we getting more value for money out of services? Yeah, absolutely. We are, for example, setting targets for things like youth crime and seeing people in emergency rooms and so on. I mean, we're actually seeing improvement there. More kids going to school, so we're getting more value for money out of what we're spending, and we're taking pressure off inflation. We're taking pressure off interest rates. All of that stuff is good. And then on the regulatory side, you name it, building regulations, earthquake regulations, resource management, the way we regulate daycares, even things that I've, little things on the side, like just garden sheds. I mean, not the biggest thing in the world, but an example of, well, here's a stupid rule, so we just got rid of it. That's refreshing. So that we're containing our spending, we're containing our red tape. Those are positive things. We are investing in infrastructure that actually makes a difference, not sort of 5 years of talking about a tram, but never actually building it. All of that stuff is good, but all of it is still taking time to work. So, for example, if you look at the spending restraint, sure, the inflation has stopped. Prices have stopped rising for the most part. Some still going up, others going down, but basically inflation's flat. Interest rates are coming down, but a lot of people is still on an interest rate that they might have hooked into 2 years ago at 6, 7, 8%. That they'll come down to a 4, but not yet. And so, these are the things that we're still kind of waiting to happen, and that's why there's this long lag and a lot of despair in the meantime. And what we really need is just a bit of hope and a bit of mojo while we wait for those policies to kick in, which I believe they will.
Yeah, you need them to, don't you? Because we've been talking now that they're going to for the last couple of years, and I suppose that's why Christopher Luxon and Nicola Willis especially are copying it in the mood of the boardroom survey today in the New Zealand Herald, because they're the figureheads, I suppose, of the government and the finance portfolio anyway, and people are starting to not believe it. People are starting to think, they're starting to get a bit impatient for this growth, for this kick, I suppose, David. People are feeling frustrated now that we keep talking about it coming, but where's that corner? When does it come around the corner,
Well, you've known me a long time, and I hope you'd agree. I'm far too lazy to make up crap. It's just not something I can be bothered to have the imagination to do. So when I say, yeah, there's a sequence, you have high spending, high inflation, high interest rates, and high unemployment. The opposite of that domino effect is government controls its spending, inflation comes down, interest rates come down, people spend and invest again, and you get unemployment down, and people have more jobs. So there is a sequence of dominoes that have to fall, and I guess people may be saying, well, it's taking a long time, but there is a logical story there. It's the same with you look at say resource management reform. I believe the most important thing this government will do will be change our resource management laws away from sustainable development, because while that sounds good, it doesn't make sense, because you never know what's sustainable, how much will people in the future need, what technology will they have. We don't know the answer to that. So sustainable development never worked. Property rights, that's always worked. And we're going to replace the resource management law in less than 3 years with a property right-based scheme. That will be huge, because fundamentally, this is a beautiful country with great weather, great land, great people. You just can't get anything done because you're always asking the council permission. We're changing that. Huge amount of work's gone in. Is it having an effect? No, because the law is just about to be going through Parliament. And then once it's gone through Parliament, it comes into effect. So there is stuff we're doing that genuinely, it takes time. We're not trying to make excuses. It just genuinely does. And I believe that it will really have a huge payoff.
I agree with you with the resource management changes, and I've heard politicians talk about this for 20 years now, and to talk about changing it. They've tinkered, they've never done it properly. This needs to be done properly, because as a property owner, as someone who has tried things over the years, the red tape in this legislation, it actually kills development, it kills speed, and makes everything go slow. You worry about road cones and things. The Resource Management Act is worse than everything else out there.
Yep, so why does stuff cost a lot? Rent's high because it's hard to build new rental property. House prices are high because it's hard to build new houses. Groceries are expensive because not just it's hard to build supermarkets, it's hard to extend wharves so that boats can come in to bring competing products. That's at the heart of so many of our problems. And then there's also the red tape stuff we're dealing to at the Ministry for Regulation. We're getting stuck into the fact that there are 36 different laws for labelling products in New Zealand. You wonder why people don't sell their goods in New Zealand, why we have a narrow selection of goods and prices are high. Well, partly because we have 36 different laws for labelling products. It's insane. We're fixing that. So, I know there'll be people who want to say, well, yeah, so what? Talk, nothing's happened. I can understand people saying that, but I also am adamant that there are things in line that are actually in train that will make a serious difference.
It all comes down to household finances, David, doesn't it? People look at their own situation and go, how am I doing? And people, it appears, have less money than they have for some time, and they can't see when that's going to be solved. And that's probably the biggest issue for a politician, is when people don't feel good about their own household finances, right?
Well, I totally agree. I always knew that we would win the euthanasia vote at the referendum, because people's opinion on that issue is driven by their own personal experiences. They know what they've seen bad death. They're not going to let anyone persuade them otherwise. And of course, it's the same with household finances. I think one of the reasons that Biden got in trouble is he spent a lot of time telling people that the economy was better, which statistically was true, but they weren't feeling it yet. And so they said, well, vote for Trump. Now, let's see how he goes with his tariffs and whether he ends up having the same problem. That's another story. But I appreciate what you're saying, that people's real experience drives their sentiment if they're not thinking about it for themselves. And I think a lot of voters out there will recognize this country's got serious problems. They're built up for a long time. You said it yourself, 20 years of the RMA building up and people doing nothing. And then the government just does stuff. Like you look at Brooke Van Velden yesterday, everyone complains about Holidays Act. Workers don't like it, unions don't like it, employers don't like it. Brooke's actually come up with a solution that's made everyone happy, and she's done it in record time. That's an example of where our government is actually fixing what matters. And I believe that, while you're right about the animal spirits and people being driven by their household sentiment, I think people can actually look at the changes we're making and saying, well, hang on a second, these guys are actually doing quite a lot of stuff. Maybe we should actually give them a bit of credence.
Yeah, but it hasn't worked for Chris Luxon. He's at 15. Your Prime Minister's at number 5. I've never seen that before, David, where the PM, imagine John Key and Bill English being at 15th and 13th. Imagine Helen Clark and Michael Cullen being there. I mean, it's just unheard of.
Well, it is, but I also just make the observation that, I've been at the very top of the mood of the border. I've been the highest ranked politician in there.
Yes.
And I've been one of the lowest ranked. And to be honest, one thing about me, I didn't come on this interview to talk about myself, but I have a pretty clear set of beliefs that I've kept to, and that they're all in my maiden speech back in 2014. I look at that speech now, I stand by everything I said, and I haven't really changed much. So, I just kind of look at it and think, okay, people think the mood of the boardroom is people that have some sort of genius insight. Well, the truth is that, these are people who basically got a commerce degree, went into business and went up the ladder. I mean, good on them. I respect their success. I know a lot of these people. I like them. But they don't have necessarily more knowledge of what's going on in New Zealand politics than a bunch of dudes at the pub or a group of ladies at the wine bar. Not really that much different.
Where that could be the PM, then a commerce degree, and the guy that went up the ladder and became PM.
Well, I mean, I guess he's got to have some degree, right? It's not. I mean, he haven't had a prime minister without a degree for a while. I think Muldoon was an accountant,
Bolger.
so sort of in the same.
Bolger, wasn't it? But wasn't Bolger a farmer? Yeah. Ran the farm at 15, I think.
Well, there you go. They could see he was marked out for greatness.
Yeah, exactly. But do you worry about the government's popularity? Given that you're a year out now from the election, your party's doing well, New Zealand First doing well, but National, you probably need them to do reasonably well, don't you, to form a centre-right government, don't you?
Well, we need the three parties to have more votes than the other three. I mean, it's that simple. So my job, I just get up every day. Look, I like Chris. I got a lot of people in the National Party I like. I especially like people like Chris Bishop. I've known them for a long time. And that's cool. But at the end of the day, my job is to show people who voted ACT that you actually got really good value for your vote. And I think we can make the case that you got really good value in terms of the amount of influence that ACT has had, the fact we've been prepared to stand up for issues that other people wouldn't stand up on, and the fact that we're actually taking steps to cut red tape and save money like nobody else. So, my job is to show people that that's good value for money for a party of 11 MPs, and maybe it should be a few more next time.
Has the centre right been too timid in this first term? I mean, we're still borrowing what, $500 million a week. We're still borrowing money. Now, you could say that's because of our foreign debt now, because of the debt that's been racked up. But, I mean, how aggressive have we been on cutting spending and cutting the public service, really, when we're still borrowing money?
Well, you know what I'm going to say to that. I mean, our party was, I think, probably the most policy-heavy party going into the election. We published our own alternative budget, never had an error or a problem with our alternative budgets. Every year we got them out. And yet, you can see our budget versus the government's budget. The government's budget has saved money, and I can tell you that's because of ACT getting in there and saying, we got to cut, guys, we got to cut. But the government has not saved as much money as ACT's alternative budget. And all I'd say about that is, look, if you support ACT, you got pretty good value. Did we get everything we wanted? No, nobody is, not even National are getting everything they want out of this coalition. But we got a pretty good deal. And would we like to do more? Yep. But my job is just to get up every day and tell the story.
How much more sort of cutting do we need to make it ahead of the next budget? Because obviously we head into Christmas, then we head into that budget round. And we're still, financially, we still don't have a surplus till, 28, 29, 30, somewhere in there. So we're still miles off from that. Can we be more aggressive in that cutting space? Do we need to be more aggressive in that sort of wasteful spending cutting space next time?
Well, I mean, we're going into the budget process now, and again, I sound like a broken record, but I'm one of the budget ministers, and as usual, I'll be saying, folks, we need to save more money. We can't have about as many bureaucrats as Grant Robertson had. We can't be spending about as much as Grant Robertson spent. We got to be different from them. So I'll make that argument. No one's surprised I make those arguments. And, sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. Last budget, I did a savings exercise. I put up $3 billion that, potentially could be saved. I managed to secure $115 million worth of savings. Some people will say, well, gee, 115 million, that's not much. I actually think if you save the taxpayer 115 million, it's a pretty good day's work. So,
Yeah. And just finally, on the mood of the boardroom, you're at 11th. So in a cricket team, you'd be the 11th, the last batter. You still made the first 11. You're ahead of the Prime Minister and Nicola Willis. Are you happy with 11?
Well, no one really happy being 11th, are they? But I think of myself as just like Liam Lawson, just struggling to get in the top 10 most weeks. But still, he's a pretty awesome guy, so I'll take it.
Good on you, David. Hey, I'll leave it there, mate. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much, David.
No worries, Duncan. You have a great day.
Cheers, you too. Okay, let us to the editor now, and they've been pouring in too. Hey, Dunk, I know your podcast is politically focused, but why am I not seeing everyday Kiwis on your show having their say? We are the ones who are having to live through this government, and there's a guy in Petone living in his car because even though he works full-time, he cannot afford to rent a room. Well, he's also having to support his mother and daughter. There's a Dargaville hospital that has no doctors on duty at night. When patients turn up there, they've been asked to sign a document basically saying if you're to die, they're not responsible. What a position to put a patient in, let alone a nurse. Dunk, I've watched you for years from when you were a political reporter to when you headed the AM show and used to listen to you on the radio. And I thought you were amazing in all your roles. Most of all, I love seeing you hold politicians accountable. Where's the passion and fire gone? What? I get it that we get older and wiser, but don't we also get to the point where we get a bit sick of the bullshit and say, fuck it, time to hold them accountable? Why not have the PM on your show to face the guy who's living in his car, or have the health minister on to face a patient who's turned up to Dargaville Hospital only to find that there's no doctor? Have them come face to face with the people who have to deal with the fallout of the government's decisions. Help the everyday Kiwis have a voice, Dunk. Bring the fire. P.S. Love the podcast and when you have the boys on, Stu and Ashley. I've learned a lot from watching you guys. It's a real laugh. Stu, what you said about women was dumbass, or dumb thing to say. But like Ashley said, who are we to judge? We've all said dumb shit things in our time. Time to move forward. Hope to see you back soon. From D in Tahui. Thank you, D. Appreciate it, mate. Fire. I'm still going hard, mate. 51, been in the game 31 years, I'm still going. Luxon won't come on this, but I'll ask again. I'll ask Luxon to come on with a homeless guy. I'll ask. Can I say no? Again. That's us, folks. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your support as well. Duncan at rover.nz, that's how you get hold of me. Always love to hear from you, what you have to think about the program, what do you think about the podcast, what do you have to say, what are your views, what are your ideas. Brady Lockie, thank you guys. We'll do this again, of course, tomorrow. Thanks for your support and all your help. And I know you're gassing it's hard, but it is the night of the salsa dancing. So I expect you to be full tit today. It's a full-on day for Brody. Anyway, we'll do this again tomorrow. Thanks for your feedback. And remember, life's not just rehearsal. There is no curtain raiser. So go and live your life now, because there ain't another one. When the lights go out, the lights go out. Thank you to the Brothers Green for all their support of the podcast. Of course, we really appreciate it. And please subscribe. And more details coming of the paid subscription coming very shortly. Catch you tomorrow. Take care. Ta-da.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, sponsored by the Brothers Green. Feed your gut what it needs. Digest Gut Health Protein Powder. I use it myself. It supports natural digestion and gut health. Made with premium Canterbury-grown hemp powder and a unique blend of active kiwifruit enzyme powder and kiwifruit skin extract, offering natural prebiotics and a nutrient-rich profile to complement a balanced lifestyle. Always read the label. Take as directed. Supplementary, of course, to a balanced diet. The Brothers Green, Christchurch.